had an insight, and I have to record this. So I think that one of the major traumas or diseases, in a way, that seems to be very, very, very deeply rooted in the human psyche, and I would say that it might be even more than originating so solely in the human psyche. It seems like this might be a condition that might be inherit by the entire universe, by the entire cosmos. So all the life forms in this cosmos might be under this condition in the deep, deep levels of themselves without even realizing. And this condition, I, it can be said, I mean, it seems to be the one that says that I do not exist. So it's the fear of one's own lack of existence, if that makes sense. And this thought, because I think it's a sort of thought, or it feels more than a thought. It feels like an ingrained belief of sorts, but it's deeper than a belief, because when I say belief, it's a belief for me. It seems like something mental, but this thing doesn't feel mental. This thing feels more than mental. It feels like an ingrained fear of paranoia, or paranoia of sorts, that is feels to be like at the deepest, almost at the root of the human psyche. It's almost like if the human psyche, if the psychosis, the human mind, the human consciousness is under visibly right now, would have a root, it would be this one. It would be the feeling or the fear of I do not exist. And I think it relates to darkness also. I think it's the root of darkness, is this exact thing, I do not exist. Is the fear or the uncertainty. This is it. I don't think it's a fear as much as it is an uncertainty. It's a doubt. This I think is the root of darkness, man. It's doubting one's own existence. It's a it's a it's a virus. It's a disease of sorts that makes one question its own existence. Oh wow. So the implications of this thing feels to me right now to be so deep that it's almost unspeakable. Like all the entire flagell, the entire virus of the fear of death is only a symbol, like death, and the entire psychosis around death and the entire fear of death is only the symbol of this root condition of uncertainty, this root condition that seems to be at the root of the human current psyche, a condition that makes the human being question its own existence. And it's like something within the human being is unsure or is uncertain or questions its own existence. It's like, I do not exist, or do I exist? It's like the question of, do I exist? Oh, wow. I just felt my head dizzy all of a sudden when I said that. Wow, okay. I don't think I ever felt this sensation before. Let me see if I can continue with this. Um, I think this is the root condition of the human psychosis. I think is the uncertainty or the doubt of one's own existence. The human being does not yet understand what it itself is, and if it exists at all. But I don't know, it just seems, I think it's something even a step deeper than this, but I'm not seeing, I mean, I can feel into it, but I can't have a direct seeing into it yet. But it feels like there might be even something more rooted, more deeper, more. But in any way, this seems like, this doubt seems like sort of original sin or something. It feels like so deep, it feels so rooted, this doubt, that it's almost like a sin. This is how it feels. I don't, like, I have zero preference for the Christian tradition or anything to explain things in that worldview of the original sin, but it just feels like a sin. I don't know how to explain it. It feels like something that the human being questioning its own existence is like something that the human being has done unto itself, and somehow it itself began feeling ashamed of doing this unto itself. So it feels a bit sinful, I don't know how to say, just because it feels like there is another condition within the human being that feels deeply either ashamed, either guilty for questioning its own existence, if that makes sense. So I think, mm, so I think at the root of the human psyche, there is this rooted condition of one not being sure of its own existence, not being sure it itself it exists, and questioning its own existence. And this, I think, creates all the later phobia of death, all the later paranoia of survival, trying to demonstrate our own existence because something within us started to be unsure of it. I think I think this is how it feels, man, but it feels like it's the original sin. And I know that in the Christian Bible, it's not phrased this way. It's not the original sin doesn't seem to be linked with questioning one's own existence. But if I would think about it, actually, I think it could have a parallel in a way, because in the Christian tradition, I think in the Christian Bible and tradition, it is said that Eve ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. So Eve, let's say, wanted to know. And I think what the snake told her, is I'm not so well versed into the Christian Bible, but I think what the snake told her is like, if you eat from this fruit, you'll become like God or something like that. I don't know if it actually said that, but I think it might have been along these lines. So she ate the fruit, and all of a sudden, both of them saw themselves naked, and they were cast out of heaven. So that's said to be the original sin. So she wanted for the bite from the apple, from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, meant she wanted to know something. So it might not, at first glance might not appear directly linked to this doubt of doubting one's own existence, but I think it might be linked, because to want to know things or yourself means you have to doubt how things are now. Just to know something means to leave something behind. To know something new means to leave behind the old ways. Like you can't be in heaven and you can't be there in heaven and also know heaven. So in order for knowledge to be attained, they had to go away from heaven. So in a way they had to doubt, like, what if that meant that eating the apple, Eve accepted to doubt what God said. And I think it has actually sense. It is said in the Bible, right? Because it was said that the snake was cunning, and if I remember correctly, from when I was a child, and like it was told to us the story of the Genesis, uh, the snake told her like, no, don't trust God, because he told you that if you eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you will die, but you will not die. So the snake was telling to Eve, look, you can eat from this fruit and you will not die, and you'll get to know things and you'll become like God, or something like this, I think. So actually, I think it relates to doubt, because the snake brought another alternative. So it said, no, don't trust what God is saying, that you cannot, you'll die if you eat from the fruit, because you'll not die. So Eve, by eating the fruit, it's like okay, maybe God is not fully there, fully right, you know. So that was a doubt, right? It's like doubting the word of God, doubting what God said in order to attain knowledge. So what if what if this is the original sin, is doubting who you actually are? What if this is the original sin, is just a doubt in a way? It's just a it's just a play of, oh wow, how to put this into words, because it appears clear inside, but I don't know how to put it into words. So so it's a doubt. Perhaps the original sin is just the doubt itself, doubting who I really am, doubting my own existence. That, oh my god, even when I say it, it feels so true. It feels that this is the original sin, even though I have no explanation for it, no direct explanation for it. I mean, it can be, I think it can be found in the Christian Bible as well, but it's not directly outspoken in this way, spoken in this way. But it feels so true, like it feels so true. Like this feels to be the original sin. Doubting one's own existence is the original sin. And with the doubt of one's own existence, it's like you create a double. It's a split in one's consciousness that happens. It's like, oh, if I am not this, then what am I? And that's the question, who am I? It starts after the doubt. The question, who am I, starts after the doubt. And the question, who am I, leads to knowledge, let's say, of oneself. So if one doesn't doubt itself first, then there is no knowledge. So if Eve wouldn't have doubted God's word, there wouldn't have been any knowledge of self. So she had to doubt God in order to gain self-knowledge, supposedly. Because we don't know the end of the story theoretically, right? Because we are in the story right now. So we haven't seen the end yet. We haven't seen if the couple got their knowledge, right? Because we are the embodiment of them. We are the Adam and Eve. Adam being the left side of the brain and Eve being the right. We are them. So we don't know the end of the story because we are in the story, living the story as of this moment, right? So, but supposedly, that was that was how the process would have gone, right? You eat from the tree of knowledge, you eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and you get knowledge at the end of the experience. That was the promise of the serpent, right? So I think the original sin is doubting oneself, and the doubt creates a split. That's the original split. It's when you doubt yourself, or one is doubting oneself. It's like a split is created in one's consciousness. This is how I see it internally. I mean, I have no explanation for this, but it's just, I feel it, I see it internally as beings. as this happening, when this is what doubt does. It's the Gemini symbol, the Gemini archetype. It's I remember that even some years ago I would see this thing like the Gemini of doubt is like the Gemini creates doubt. It's the archetype of doubt. This is how I've seen it. I mean, it's when one doubts itself, its existence, what it happens is that a split is created, a double personality is created, a split within one's consciousness where now you have the original self and now you have the double. And now you're looking at the double like you're looking into a mirror and trying to understand, well, if I am not this, then what could I be? And you start to play around with this double personality and try to shape it and morph it into numerous ways, trying to see if you could be that, if that makes sense. Trying to see if one could be that thing. So it's like doubting oneself. One starts playing with what one could be. If one doesn't believe it itself it exists, then in the way it exists, then what could I be then? And the ultimate question is if one doubts its own existence, then apparently, like the first thing that comes to my mind, the first association that comes is that one is only left with inexistence, with darkness. Because the negation of existence is inexistence. So what if doubting one's own existence created death? Because death is the symbol of inexistence. And this is when Adam and Eve became mortal. Let's say they were sent to earth and they became mortal because what if this happened because they started to doubt their own immortality, they started to doubt their own existence, the I am. Let's say they started to doubt their I am, so they had to go and invent and experience the I am not, the negation of what I am was. So if they negated their own existence, if that was the original sin, then negating their existence would have meant creating the opposite of that, the negation of that, which would be inexistence. Their choice of doubting their existence might have created the illusion of inexistence, the illusion of death. And they might have went into that illusion to explore it out, to see what they are not, in order to understand themselves. And that's the root, that's the original sin. It's the fear that, or the doubt that I do not exist. And that this is what is bringing the fear of death. And then it's like, we are fearing death because we know it's our creation. It's like we are fearing to acknowledge our own sin. Let's say we are fearing to acknowledge that there is no death. We are not afraid of death, we are afraid of life. We are afraid of our own immortality. Let's say we are afraid to realize that, oh my god, like, no, it's an illusion, like I do exist. We are afraid of our own existence. We are not afraid of death, we are afraid of being truly alive and having to deal with our own true self and our own aliveness and our own immortal beings. We are afraid of our own true self, if that makes sense. And then, by consequence, we are afraid of death because we know that at the moment of death, the truth is revealed. So it's like Adam and Eve, they are ashamed by their own choice, by their own play pretend, because they right now they are play pretending that they are something else than what they are. They are imagining being what they are not. They are imagining their own inexistence. They are imagining their own death, which is a lie because they do exist. They are real. And they are kidding and fooling themselves, and they are lying to themselves. And deep within, they know this choice. They know they are lying to themselves, and this is why they feel ashamed of themselves. But I have to question if they really know it, consciously, I mean. Because if we would take into consideration this myth of eating from an apple, then that apple might just be like a sort of drug or something, that they fall under the effects of that doubt, but without fully having, perhaps not having entire awareness of what that drug does to them and what the effects of that drug might be. Similar to how when somebody takes DMT or psilocybin or any other drug, psychoactive substance, I mean, it might not have no little idea of what that psychoactive substance and that plant might actually do to their psyche and the journey that it will take their psyche through. So what if Adam and Eve at first might not even have realized that they started doubting themselves? What if everything was so new that, let's say, apple, that drug was like that apple was, or that fruit of the tree of knowledge was like a drug, and after eating the apple, they fall like into a sleep, and that falling into a sleep, which by the way, it was the great fall from heaven, them falling asleep. What if that in that entire sleep they dreamt and they started doubting themselves first, and then they dreamt everything that they were not. They dreamt the negation of themselves, meaning they dreamt being death and experiencing death in multiple ways. And what if this entire cosmos, with all of its history, all of its life forms, its star systems and everything, is just one of these dreams of Adam and Eve, that they are dreaming together, that they are outcasted out of heaven and they are doubting their own existence. And it's so much more like when one starts doubting one's own existence, is like a field of possibilities is opening up, because now you can play with whatever you could be. If you're doubting who you are, then you can have an entire field of possibilities for whatever you could be. And that's when the space for creation opens up, and they might have tried so many roles together. Like I even see them sometimes like mixing their roles together, like creating universes in which Adam tries to play as if it was Eve, and Eve was trying to play as if it was Adam. So they are like mixing roles instead of keeping their original roles. They are inverting themselves in a way. The feminine tries to take the role of the masculine, and the masculine tries to take the role of the feminine, and it's an inversion of roles. The Pandora box basically opens up once you start negating yourself or doubting yourself, because then you have room for imagining whatever you want yourself to be if you negate yourself. And they might not be entirely conscious that this is happening to them. Like, I have no idea, but I would imagine, I can almost feel it inside, a hunch that they might not have been conscious that the apple meant the fruit, I mean, because it's not necessarily an apple. The fruit of the tree of knowledge, when after they bite from it, after they ate from it, they might have fallen asleep, but without having any understanding at first of what the drug is doing to them. Similar to how here in this reality you can take a drug, but you have no idea what a drug will do to you, the experiences that it will put you through. So they might not have realized at first that they started doubting themselves. They might not have realized that it's their own creation, that they have started doubting themselves and they are creating their own antithesis in a way. They created their own anti-hero, antithesis out of themselves. They started negating who they are. By negating who they are, I mean. And so they had room to imagine everything, every horrors of the world, everything that they were not, imagining killing and dying in numerous infinite ways. Imagine everything that they are not, basically. Imagine the inversion of roles. Imagine being one without the other. For example, I can see universes in which Eve was remaining all alone and knowing nothing of Adam and trying to recreate him without having him there, and the same happening to Adam in another version of the universe. And then you have a version of the universe perhaps where they are together but they cannot see each other, cannot hear one another. Whereas in heaven, let's say, they are perfectly there, one with another one. It's just the same. I see them like that. I mean, it's like the same. They are created for one another. They are there for one another always. So yeah, this is where this insight led me right now. So the original theme seems to be negating oneself, doubting one's own existence, and so opening up an entire field of exploration towards what inexistence might mean, what not existing might mean. And this, I think, this doubting one's own existence seems to be at the root core of every human action, every human emotion, every human thought, everything that has ever been created or experienced in this entire cosmos, not only on Earth. Probably if there would be other planets or there would be other life forms on other planets, I would totally see them as actors in the same drama, having the same root core condition at their base of their psyche and their existence. So every human word, every human thought, every human action, every human behavior, preference, idea, creation, creativity, music, everything, art, from horrors, from everything, if you look deep down, this seems to be the core condition of humanity, is first doubting that they exist. Like the human being is doubting its own existence, and then on top of that you start to have shame and guilt because you're entertaining this scenario that you know it is false. And that's when a layer after this, you have a deep ingrained layer of shame. Is a deeply rooted primordial shame and guilt for this choice, because something deep within knows that we are lying to ourselves. It knows that this is not true. It knows it's just a lie that we are telling to ourselves, that we do not exist, that we are dead in a way, that we are these weak and deadly creatures and we do not know how things are and we are at the mercy of the environment or the gods or God, or we have created this, by the way, this idea of God, like who knows how we distorted, like human beings have distorted the notion of God in this negation of life. So we are right now experiencing the inversion of life itself. We are in one of the scenarios where life was being inverted completely. I even remember that today I've recrossed about on the symbol of the pentagram, the inverted pentagram, and which is the symbol of darkness in this realm. The inverted, like the perverted, the demonic darkness. And it was exactly the symbol of the inversion of life itself, which life was symbolized by the up pointing pentagram, and the down pointing pentagram was the inversion of life, the realm of darkness. So so many things in the human life can be easily seen as only enacted from this core condition of the shame and the guilt from knowing that we are lying to ourselves. The shame and the guilt from knowing that we deliberately choose to doubt our own existence. For example, doubting one's own existence creates a fear that one does not exist. And from this fear of one not actually existing, which is unreal, which is a falsity, which is a lie, comes the paranoia of surviving, or the fear of survival, or the fear of being killed, the fear of dying. And from this paranoia comes, almost like I personally see it like this, coming all human violence, all human wars, all human acts of atrocity. It's just from this inner paranoia, inner fear that one does not exist. So one, because one feels inside that it itself does not exist, and something even more deeper than that knows it is a lie, but most people have no penetration to those deeper levels anyway. So at best, I think maybe some people, maybe some minds could get to this idea that I fear that I do not exist. But deeper than that, there is the layer where one actually knows inside it is a lie and it is playing a game and it is ashamed of that choice. But that's even deeper. And even deeper than the shame and the guilt, as I said, is the doubt itself. It's it's a question, it's just a question. It's just one doubting itself, questioning its existence. So because one fears it does not exist, one tries to overly show its existence in the world. One tries to overly exist here in this inverted realm. It is trying to overly exist, to overly try to exist by killing things, killing other people, fighting for resources, overly imposing yourself over the environment, over the people around, just to have this mark, mark over the reality around you, just to know, oh, like I'm so important, i'm I'm so existent, look at me, like I'm impacting all these people, all of them are listening to me, look at how much my existence is existing, like there is no way I could not exist, because look at me, how important I am, how much my existence actually is existing. And even though we can see this type of behavior creating really, really extreme actions in some of the people we all can identify from history and from our current era right now, people who have trashed or destroyed the planet in order to acquire resources or to dominate territories or to dominate countries or things of this nature. But even though we can have these extreme examples, this is just an extreme play out of a scenario that exists in all humanity. Like, we all do this thing of wanting to expand our existence over others, over the territory around, just for us to feel more sure that we exist. Like, even though some people have managed to actually do this outwardly and overimpose their existence over others, all of us want secretly to do this. All of us want to impose our view and our existence over others. Because deep within, at a level of ourselves, all of us are doubting our own existence. All of us, something within us doubts that we exist. And because another part within us knows that that is a lie, this conscious part here wants to disprove and to show no, that's a lie, but it wants to show it here in this reality here. It's why, no, it's a lie that I do not exist. I exist. Let me show you how important I am. Let me show you how smart I am. Let me show you how artistic I am. Let me show you how brilliant, beautiful, powerful, full of muscles, full of beauty for the women, full of muscles for the men, full of artistic qualities for the artist, full of scientific or smart brains for the scientists, and so on, man. It's like everyone is peacocking. Everyone is advertising itself because it wants to freaking feel once in its life that it exists. Because it knows deep within that it is a lie that it doesn't exist. So we are all peacocking at a level or another, in more gross ways or in more subtle ways, in more outverted ways or in more unconscious ways. We are all advertising ourselves for the others around, hoping that somebody at some point will see us and it will say, yes, you do exist. Oh, I see you. Oh, wow, I see you. You do exist. It's like everything that everyone does is just to be seen and recognized and have its existence recognized. Well, at the same time, something within each being, and this is where the neurosis and the psychosis of humanity comes in, stops them from actually accept their own existence. So part of them wants for other people or the environment or the situations to show them that they exist, but another part of them is denying to actually feel that they actually exist. And that's the neurosis. That's the psychosis of humanity. In which it's like that thing with one mask that cries and one mask that laughs, Like on one side you have the suffering of this entire gameplay, which is a falsity. It's an inversion of the truth. And you have the suffering of it because something within knows it is a falsity. But another part is laughing because it feels like, oh, but it's so much diversion, it's so much, it's like so many things happening. I so much exploration and creativity. We can invent so much out of this negation. Like some part of the human psyche is fearing to end the illusion it is under. So there are many parts within the psyche, but this is the core condition. Everybody wants to be seen, and in my opinion, there might just be the possibility that this might be a key in this entire game, let's say. The key might be to actually be able to see another one. This might be a key. This might be the actual key of the game itself. It might be to actually be able to see another being, to see its real existence, I mean, to truly see another being. Stop looking into ourselves, trying to validate our own existence. I mean, not stop it, I mean, because for sure this is a true need that exists within us to have our own existence validated. Because this is how the psyche works. It doesn't feel the human being is able to change this stuff, man. This feels like primordial forces within the psyche. This is how the game is created. It's like, even if we realize these things, this seems like this is the construction of the game itself. It's like no one, in my opinion, can mess with this stuff. It's like this is the principles of existence. It's like there are parts of the psyche that are under these operations all the time. Like even if we realize them or not, they are still continuing to be. But I think so the need for one to actually have its existence fully seen by another one might always be there, because this is part of the game. This is part of how the psyche of the human being is created. This is one of the primordial forces moving within the human being. But the key might be there might be a key somewhere related to seeing another being, but at the same time seeing oneself. There might be a key in truly seeing truth in the way it is, and thus being able to truly see another being and oneself. So just to conclude on this, all human beings, and I would say all life forms on Earth and in the cosmos, are operating under the same root condition of doubting that they exist, doubting their own existence, and thus the fear of inexistence, which is a lie, which is an illusion, is created. Fear of inexistence equates for fear of death. And this is where the entire human realm as we know it starts taking form. This is when people want to over validate their own existence, over show themselves, make others validate them, seek validation for themselves through different mediums, either relationships, money, power, resources. Spirituality even can be used as a tool to validate oneself. Everything, there is no purity in this game. Everything is inverted. There is no pure spirituality. There is no pure anything in this game here. If it is outspoken, if it has words attached to it, if it is seen and perceived in any way, then it is inverted. Everything is used as a tool within this game, which is an illusion. It's a falsity, the game itself. But it's nonetheless real. Even if it's an illusion, it's real. So this is when all the spectrum of human drama stems from. People fighting one another, people killing one another, people even falling in love with one another, because the attraction and the rejection, both of them stem from the same condition. We fall in love with people who we feel that they can see us more. So we have a chance at having our existence validated. So we fall in love. We feel joy in situations where we feel that we can allow ourselves for some time to feel comfortable with who we are. So we feel joy. So all human spectrum of emotions, from negative to positive, are just responses to the same root condition of doubting one's own existence. We feel joy when we feel some situations make us feel comfortable with who we are, because for some time the pressure of that negation is diminished. The pressure of that inner negation that we are doing to ourselves is diminished. And then we feel a lot of sadness or a lot of grief or a lot of anger or fury when that negation, when somebody or something makes us feel that negation that we are under. A human being can even do murder to somebody that is making it feel its own negation, its own sin. So if somebody points at us, hey, you are negating yourself, the human beings are capable of killing that person. Because the wound is so deep, because we know deep within that it is something that a hurt that we are doing onto ourselves. Negating ourselves is the biggest wound that it's like you are cutting yourself, and somebody comes and tells you, hey, you're suffering because you're cutting yourself. And instead of actually looking not at the one that told you that, but at your own wound, it's like people have been killing that person that noticed and mentioned that, just because they felt extremely either afraid to look at that wound, because after years upon cycles of existence of denying that and suppressing that and trying to build filters that would hide what we are actually doing and what is actually inside of ourselves, fear to even look there might have been constructed. Fear to look into that wound. So anyway, I think it's enough for this video, and I will close it here, but I think, yeah, much more could have been added, but this appears clear to me right now.